Well, hello, everyone. I think this is working now. Just going to check and see that I'm streaming. Yes, there we go. Amazing. So I just want to start by saying this is a little bit of an experiment. I am hoping to, well, I am planning and I am taking action to be more visible and more live in this Facebook group to provide you guys with just trainings and things that are alive in my heart, truths that are coming across my path, with the intention of blessing you with those downloads. With a view to helping people to awaken, to activate and transform their lives. So here I am, breaking a pattern. And I have to admit, just to say, that going live like this, in the way that I'm doing today, is a bit of an experiment. Like I said, it's quite new for me, in the sense of I have got some notes, but what I'm trying to do is really just channel for you guys, like what's coming up for me and what's coming down the pike for, my clients and the people and the conversations that I'm having with people. And so part of my programming, I would say, is that, I'm very used to planning and curating and being very careful and having things all planned out, right? But actually part of my programming when it comes to things like human design is that my blueprint and my energetics, my frequency is much more around just divine inspiration. So I'm trying to flex that muscle. I'm trying to energize the true identity of me, which is that I always have divine inspiration available to me, and that I don't need to plan or curate or prepare anything, that I have the ability to channel this divine guidance, this divine wisdom through me. And in doing so, in doing this live today with you right here, right now, with the massive encouragement from my incredible coach, Leanne McDonald, my intention is to really just energize this other side, this other identity, which is more of my true identity. So it's not to lessen or suppress or say that the shadow or the not self or the other side of me is wrong in any way, but it is really just this dance of, we always have sort of two sides to us. We live in a polarized universe of contrast. So we have this concept of who we are, what our identity is, and we can believe some of those beliefs around, why we can't do things, or, I should prepare and I should have all of these things. Or I can lean into my true identity, like I'm trying to do today, and take different action. And in doing that different action, I change the story, right? And I lean more into the true identity, which is that I am limitless, that I am capable, that you guys are going to benefit from this, and that I'm really just sharing from my heart. So that is my intention, is to, as I say, go live more often to provide more and more of these trainings for you. And I just want to make sure, yes, I am recording. So I just want to start by just opening up with a bit of a blessing, and just to give gratitude and thanks for this platform, for this technology, for this group, for this ability to take the stage and to share what is coming through for me, such that I can benefit the collective and help to shift the consciousness of the planet, so that we may create a more joy-filled world where everybody is taking their rightful place, where everybody is sharing their gifts, where everybody is in knowing of their divinity and recognizing the God in them. So just in this moment, allowing this space to hold one life, one love, one good, one God, one source, one spirit, one power, one presence, one truth, and one mind, which is my mind now. Wonderful. So with that said, the topic I wanted to talk to you guys about today is to do with anxiety, and specifically one of my clients, and we were having a really great conversation this week or last week, because they presented with some high blood pressure symptoms. And so, that was all sort of tied up with them having general sort of stress and anxiety. And so we really got to talking about, sort of the physiological aspect of anxiety and stress, and also the psychological aspects of anxiety and stress and high blood pressure, and how high blood pressure itself can be literally a manifestation of, what is going on in our world. It's not just our body, but obviously, what is going on in our lives is contributing to that high blood pressure. So we were talking about, just the situation that was presenting for this person, and ways in which that we could alleviate that stress, or address that high blood pressure, because this person had, already approached the doctor and they'd administered, medication for the high blood pressure. But of course, it's never just about the high blood pressure. That is a physical symptom of a deeper cause, right? So there's something else going on. Any aches or pains or things that we have going on in our bodies are a physical manifestation of beliefs that we have, of things that are going on in our mind, because we are not just this body, we have a body. We are not our mind, we have a mind. We are not our thoughts, we have our thoughts. We are multi-dimensional beings, right? So it's never just the thing, right? And in modern medicine, I do appreciate that there is a lot of medication out there which is there to alleviate the symptoms. But if we're not addressing the root cause, then those symptoms and that manifestation or that illness is just going to keep coming back. So in discussing this general topic of high blood pressure being sort of the end result, the ultimate effect, as it were, we had the opportunity to just discuss and really sort of unpack and unpick, what was going on underneath the surface. So I'm going to go through what I went through with this person. And I don't know how long this talk is going to be. So I have an open throat in human design. So it might take me a while to get to the point. I'm owning that, right? And I know that those people that are here and need to hear this will hear this today. And so, yes, she got a lot of value out of our conversation. And I thought some of the topics that were coming up would just be really relevant, because it's kind of all seeded through from, I'm reading like 3 different books at the same time right now. And it's funny because I'm reading different chapters in each of these books. And yet, they're all sort of culminating in this same theme, which is in and around about the topic of time. Okay, so the 3 books I'm reading are The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. In fact, maybe is it just 2? The Creative Act by Rick Rubin, 10x is Easier Than 2x by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy, Dr. Benjamin Hardy, I think it is. Anyway, definitely those 2 books, and possibly a third one that I'm maybe dipping in and out of that I can't remember right now. But in both of those books, we're sort of talking about the creative act, and specifically, it's talking about time. So in 10x is Easier Than 2x, I'm in this chapter right now where we're distinguishing between 2 different kinds of time. There's chronos time, which is like often, like the stuff, that's the to-do list, right? When you're really busy and you just have like, I've got 4 hours to get this thing done, right? When we're talking about chronos time, a lot of the time it is, things and stuff that needs to get done. So it's often filled with tasks and things like that. Whereas kairos time, these are these 2 words in ancient Greek. Kairos time is more expansive. It's the way that we use time in a way that helps us to have quantum leaps, right? And move forward. So an hour is not just an hour, right? An hour to one person might mean a different thing to another person, to a different person. So it's all about how we use our time and the effect that how we use our time has on us, right? And so if we were to kind of put the kairos time into modern parlance, the way we can look at it is that if you were to look at the pie chart of your day, we might split it very loosely into like time we're at work, time we're sleeping, and time that we are not doing those things. Now, what we decide to put in that not part varies from person to person, but that might be like, eat, sleep, work, repeat type situation going on a daily basis. And in kairos time, basically, it's this focus on the fact that actually the huge part, that's the other book, is Time Off. And I can't remember the authors. And in sort of all of these things, what they're talking about is just really like, we can't create more time. Time as a concept is a bigger philosophical conversation. However, we all have 24 hours in a day, but how, how we use that time is up to us. And we have 7 days in a week. We have, so many days in a month, right? And so Kairos time is really acknowledging that, yes, there is a time for focused work, or when we're performing, when we need to do something that's important. There's also, this time for planning and preparation where we're sort of honing our craft. And so if you were a performer, literally like on Broadway, you would have your stage performance, but then you would have your rehearsal time where you're honing your skill, you're planning it, you're preparing it. And then you would have your sort of free time, where you don't have to do either of those things, right? So in Kairos time, there is focus time, where we're performing. Then there is sort of the planning and preparation time. And then there is the free time, which is the active rest and rejuvenation. And it's the active rest and rejuvenation, or the play and rejuvenation time, that I really want to focus in on today. Because if you're here, then I know some things about you, because I've been there, right? So I think a lot of us women, have come from a generation where, feminism has really sort of blossomed. And there is a lot of ethos maybe like seeded within us of almost like this, fierce independence comes up a lot, right? That phrase, fierce independence. And, I remember, I think my mum even describing me as that when I was a kid, right? And I would probably say that to people, in terms of like, I'm fiercely independent. And, so there's these beliefs, or this sort of programming, which is sort of like, I need to do this all by myself. And, so I need to like be working really, really hard, I can't take my foot off the gas, right? I maybe need to do this alone. I can't ask for help, all that sort of like very admirable independence can sometimes be our downfall, to the point where, we maybe feel like this maladaptive approach to play, right? So anytime when we are not working hard, when we are not focused on what it is that we're supposed to be doing, is time taken away from our active recovery, right? And what time off really talks about is just how important play is as a function of your work, right? As a function of your work ethic. So I've titled this talk, what is your play ethic? Because I know a lot of you who will be fiercely independent, as I have been, and continuing to notice. I know that you have a really strong work ethic. I know that you've always got your foot on the gas and you're always doing stuff, but that might mean that you feel like you're spending a lot of time in front of the laptop and you're not making any progress. It might feel like, that there's just too much. You feel overwhelmed, right? So all these symptoms, so stress, anxiety, overwhelm, procrastination, no progress, are all sort of symptoms of just like being solidly in that work period, that work part of the pie chart. And what we really need, what we have the invitation to do, is to really sort of readdress, like, that's a very chronos a way of looking at stuff, right? It's just like, I've got so much to do and so much time to do it in. Whereas when we move into and shift into a Kairos type scenario, a Kairos type paradigm, where actually we recognize that there is a real importance to our active recovery as a function of the quote unquote work that we do. Work being a perspective or a definition, right? Because when you are doing things that light you up, you won't have to work a day in your life. I don't know who says that, but there is work that drains us, and then there's work that lifts us up, right? So the play aspect of the Kairos time, the active rest or the active recovery, is super, super important, because it helps to charge us back up again, right? Such that, we are able to do our work better. Because I can say from experience, when I've maybe sat in front of the laptop for hours feeling like I'm walking through molasses trying to get a task done, and it's just because my body and my brain and everything is just in this like freeze mode. I literally can't move forwards, right? And I'm just not making any progress, and that becomes more frustrating, and that's just like a downward spiral, right? So if you're feeling things like overwhelm, procrastination, no progress, you feel like you're stuck behind your laptop all the time, and you just want to like make more progress, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Then ironically, you don't need to work harder, you need to play harder, right? So that's really what I wanted to talk about today, was just like 10xing your play ethic. And play encompasses, you know, the things that you do to rejuvenate yourself. So I talk about this when I talk about Dharma as well, because Dharma in traditional, I was going to say mythologies, but it's not that. Dharma, when you talk about Dharma in spirituality, that's the word I made. You know, people often think that's just about the purpose, like, what am I here to do? Or what is my function, right? And that is true. You know, you have and are born with, this is what this tattoo means here. This is Om Mani Padme Hum, it's one of my favorites. And that is basically talking to the fact that we are all born seeded with incredible gifts, you know, inner medicine, hidden medicine that we all bring, no matter who we are, whether we're a dog or whether we're a person. You know, we all have some kind of gift that we bring to the world. Somebody in the world needs your unique medicine, right? And it's our only job is to bring out that gift, which is already inside of you. You don't have to go anywhere to look for it, but to bring it out of yourself, to hone it, to share it with the world. That's it. That's basically the ultimate goal, you know, is to realize yourself, to experience life in the fullness of who and what you are, right? And everyone has one. Everyone has a gift, right? And that gift might evolve and change as your consciousness evolves and changes based on what you think is possible and what you think you are possible of doing or able to do. But so, yes, there is one side of that coin, that Dharma coin, which is the gifts that you're here to share, the purpose of you, the function of you, right? And you can get insights into that by looking at your astrology, 100% looking at your human design. Can't endorse Leanne enough if you want to go and check her out. But then the other side of the coin, and actually one of my mentors, Christabel Zamor, I think she's writing a book about this right now, but is sort of, I mean, she calls it the power of wow, which I think is brilliant. But this other side of the coin is really about like what charges you up, right? So think about your phone and any device that you use, you know, it needs to be charged up every now and again. It gives you a lot of value. So right now my laptop is giving me a lot of value, being able to communicate to you through Facebook and whatnot. But eventually it needs to be charged up again, right? And the things that charge you up are as unique as you are, right? So think about how different your taste is to someone. Like, you know, somebody might order something off the menu and you might think like, oh God, no, I hate anchovies or whatever, right? You have a certain set of tastes that you like that make you happy, and other people have different tastes and likes. And there are things and activities and whatnot that you can do that are going to light you up and charge you up, right? And when you are in that charged state, like literally you are a battery, when you have that, when you're literally sort of fully charged up to here, then you are in a better position to share your gifts, to share your energy. You know, if you're in a depleted state, then your functions and your priorities are going to be different, right? So when you are in a good feeling vibration, then you literally become a magnet to good feeling things. So being in a good state, I mean, quote unquote good, I just mean like full up. You know, when you feel great, when you're in a situation that just makes you smile, just makes you laugh, makes you just grin a little bit, right? That in itself is just going to shift your reality. And those are often those moments, like those sort of serendipitous moments, like when you're doing something that just makes you laugh, makes you happy. You know, those are the moments when maybe you make a connection with someone or an idea drops into your head, right? So it's just about being in that, you know, Abraham Hicks talks about it being like the vortex. You're being in the vortex when you're on that higher flying disc, when you're just in this high vibration of just like, God, things feel good. You know, when you feel good, good things come to you, right? So it's really, really important to really make this a priority, like this play and rejuvenation part of your life, you know. So are you making time for this active recovery, right? So returning back to my client who presented, as I say, with this high blood pressure and anxiety and stress and overwhelm, you know, we started to sort of look at both the play ethic but also like the emotional intelligence around anxiety first of all, you know. So again, returning to this concept of like I guess, hyper independence or chronic independence that, you know, we as women in this modern era may be experiencing. But I also just want to touch on, like, you know, emotions that we have been trained to run away from because they don't feel good. So thinking back to a conversation I was hearing a while back, and forgive me, I can't I can't remember exactly who it was that said it. I will probably come to me in a moment. But basically the conversation was around, you know, when we were children, if something bad happened to us at school, like maybe we weren't picked for a sport, or maybe we came really low down on a list of grades or something, just something bad happened to us, right? And maybe we came to our parents to just tell them, like, oh, this happened and I feel sad about it, right? In that moment, when our parents tried to console us, you know, they may have given us words of encouragement to make us feel better, to make us feel happy, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with, you know, wanting your children to feel happy. But in this conversation, what was really illuminating was that actually, in doing that, you know, that parent is teaching that child that you're experiencing an emotion that I don't want us to feel. And I'm going to direct you to this other emotion. Like, so maybe we can see the positive in things. And that might also be, you know, considered to be like toxic positivity, but it's like, you know, they're encouraging you to say, well, you know, not everybody can do that, but you can do this. Like, just encouraging that child to, I guess, like, not to turn away from that sadness and that feeling that they were experiencing, because, you know, they're basically saying, like, I don't want you to feel that, I don't want to feel that either, so let's run away from it and let's focus over here. And, you know, maybe bigging them up in another way, like, okay, you're maybe not good at that sport, but you're so good at this one, right? So normal, right? Which parent, like, wouldn't do that? So this is not a criticism of parenting. I'm not a parent, I do have a fur baby, but still. So in that moment, you know, our caregivers, you know, are basically teaching us that, like, oh, there's this emotion that we don't like to feel, and so let's turn away from that emotion and let's try and feel something better, right? Now, in that choice, again, having that choice to choose something different is great. Having that power of choice absolutely is what we're aiming for. However, in that moment, we were also labeling, you know, sadness, upset, anxiety as bad, as things that we don't want to feel. Whereas in actually, our anxiety and those lower, denser emotions are just data, right? So if we look at this through the lens of emotional intelligence, you know, all emotions that we experience, all feelings that we experience, they are not who we are. They don't define who we are. You know, we have emotions, but we are not our emotions. We have feelings, but we are not our feelings. Take it a step back. You are the ultimate divinity that is observing those feelings and those emotions and those thoughts, right? But you are not those. You are and you're not, right? Because we have a triune nature, a three-part nature. We are both body, but we are also soul. And then we have an eternal spirit, right? So we are all of those things at the same time, all of the time. And so when we're thinking about, you know, this anxiety or this overwhelm, right, we can get locked in and just really identify it and feel like, oh God, I don't want to feel that. And one of the classic tests I will do with a client is like, or we say to them, you know, it's like when you say, like, how are you feeling? Often the response is, oh, I'm fine. It's like, no, but how are you feeling really? Right? Because, you know, there's that knee-jerk reaction to just say, like, oh yeah, I'm fine. But actually, if we dug underneath the surface and really tuned into how am I really feeling, without any fear of saying out loud, I feel anxious. Because up until now, when we maybe say that we feel anxious, you know, there's that worry that, like, oh, if I say it, then I'm just going to feel even worse, right? So, but actually, if we are able to spot the emotions and just name them, you know, without any meaning behind it necessarily, then we just start to take their power away a little bit. You know, if we just stop fighting them and just recognize that they're there, you know. So in speaking to this client, I was kind of suggesting that if you were to think about all of your emotions as being like children in a primary school class, right? So you've got the happy kids over in the corner, the ones that are laughing, joking, whatever it is over there. And then you've got the overwhelmed kids, the anxious kids, the worried kids who are kind of over here in the corner, right? They are all as worthy of your love and attention, all of them, right? So in noticing that these emotions are coming up, this anxiety, this overwhelm, this fear, this worry, just start to compassionately notice that they're there, right? And just see them all as your children equally. And just to kind of put a metaphorical arm around those emotions to just say, I see you. I'm sorry I didn't notice you before. I'm sorry I was unaware of you, but it's okay, right? So just normalizing those feelings, not trying to run away from them. So in that adult kid scenario that we talked about before, just sitting with that emotion, just going, that must be really hard, or that must have felt awful. I can tell that's really upset you, right? And just allowing the child to just be with that emotion instead of trying to deflect it to something else, right? Instead of trying to push that kid to the side in honor of, like preferring to put the spotlight on the happy, laughing kids over here in the corner, right? So that's the first thing, is just kind of like just the emotional intelligence of recognizing that you're experiencing these emotions and noticing that there has been a meaning that's been put around that emotion. So anxiety equals bad, I don't want to feel it. Or overwhelm feel equals bad, I don't want to feel it. So that first step is just acknowledging that, like, okay, what is underneath this high blood pressure? What is underneath the anxiety? What is the belief, right? Because the anxiety is the feeling, but there is a belief underneath it, right? And that belief might be that I feel like, things are out of my control or whatever, right? So we get to do that bit of inquiry as to what is actually like sitting underneath my emotions here, my beliefs, my anxieties, right? And treating all of your emotions the same, so you're just able to normalize and just hold them in your consciousness. Like in your morning meditation, maybe just sit with that question, just like, how am I feeling? But how am I feeling really? And just label and name the emotions that come up. So I do this quite often. I'm by no means a finished product, and quite often I will sit in meditation and I'll just name the emotions that are coming up. It's like, yeah, I'm scared today, or oh, I'm actually really joyful and happy today, right? It doesn't always have to be these higher frequency emotions. Like, of course we want to feel those more often, but also the lower density emotions are there just as data, right? They give us an opportunity to say, okay, there's something that's not in alignment here, or there's an area where I feel like I'm not in control. So what can I do about that, right? So it gives us the opportunity to address anything that needs to be addressed. Like how in a light, I always say this, but like when a light goes off on your dashboard, on your car, you have the choice to take it into the garage to get it fixed. You have the choice to kind of disable the light and not do anything about it, but it's just a light, right? It's just a light that's gone off on your dashboard. So you get to choose what you do about it. So when you feel that anxiety, when you feel that overwhelm, when you feel that stress, when you feel that pressure, right, you get the choice to do something about it, right? So yeah, and just kind of forgive yourself for not noticing or not allowing yourself to feel those emotions, and just love on those emotions a bit more, right? And just, like I said, put your metaphorical like arm around that kid, if you will, in your metaphorical or hypothetical classroom. So that's the thing, really, is like, first of all, to just kind of know that there is an emotional intelligence piece to this, and an opportunity to shift your thought patterns, towards, or just identifying that like anxiety is really a sign or a signal that you are more invested in your shadow self, right? This limited version of you. Anxiety is more of an indicator that you're leaning more into, or you have a closer relationship with your limitations, your shadows, right? But the truth of you is that you are unlimited, and that you have this pure potential within you, right? So it's just an indication of like, oh, okay, which one do I have the stronger relationship with, my shadow or my true essence? And then you can sit with both of those, right? And choose which is going to be the identity that pushes you forwards. So in that battle between anxious and not anxious, which one do you want to choose? So that both of these identities can exist within you, at the same time. It's just which one do you choose to energize, right? Because it's all a story. So then getting on to kind of the nuts and bolts practical side of this instilling like a really protected play ethic, or building your play ethic, your restorative or active recovery ethic, right? So with this particular person, it was like, how this stress and this anxiety had built up because they were giving so much of themselves to someone else. They were providing a lot of care. So I'm guessing, a lot of mothers might feel this way, giving a lot to their families, or if you run your own business, you're giving a lot to your business. So, looking at where you are giving of yourself to someone or something else to the detriment of you, right? So this was about looking at the ways in which you can charge yourself up. So that other side of the Dharma coin that I talked about, right? Putting yourself into that power of wow, as Christabel talks about, but really just like, what are the activities and the things that you are doing, that you are making time for in your day, in your week, that are, rejuvenating you? And I don't just mean, and this goes back to the Kairos principle, this is not just about, lying on the sofa watching Netflix for 6 hours or something like that, which you can totally do, but it's not necessarily going to like actively recover you, right? So when you're talking about sort of this play ethic, it's about, doing activities that are going to help rejuvenate your body, your mind, your soul. So maybe getting a massage, if that's your thing, going to a spa, if that's your thing, cold water swimming, if that's your thing, eating some really, really yummy food, making sure that you're hydrated, so really tending to your physical body, but also your mind and your soul. So just making sure that you are in some way, like there's this subsection of occupational psychology, which is all about being like completely psychologically disengaged from your work. So in this case, this person's work was sort of caregiving, but your work might be your business or your family. And so it's really about creating this place or this ability. Your ability to be 100% plugged into the work you need to do is in direct proportion to how much you are able to 100% unplug from that. And this is a lesson that I'm learning myself. I'm by no means, as I say, I'm not the finished article. I'm learning with you. And that's why I really wanted to share this piece with you today, was because I just feel like these concepts around time and how we are spending our attention, I think a lot of us are attention poor, because of all the distractions and everything that goes on in our modern worlds, right? So I think a lot about overwhelm and anxiety and, feeling pressure can really be looked at by looking at, how we are spending our attention and how we can buy back our time and create and craft this part of our day, this part of our week, that is dedicated to rest and rejuvenation and active recovery. So think about like, Olympic athletes and stuff like that, when they're actually training, there's the training part, and then there's like the active recovery bit, like in the middle of a set, for example. So, what are we talking about? Like protecting some time in your week. Now, it should be at least 2 days, if not 3 days, that you have this free time. And in that, yes, you need to sleep some, but then there's this element of like play and rejuvenation, like literally to make yourself young again, to plug yourself back into charge, right? So, this is about sort of 10xing your rejuvenation and your play ethic, right? So if you look at how your rhythm of your day, your week goes right now, just kind of draw yourself a little pie chart and just go, okay, how many hours am I dedicating to work? If you have a full-time job, or if you're an entrepreneur, we all know that, like, what are weekends? Like, we're working on our stuff, like pretty much, like I feel as if I sometimes dropped the 9 to 5 to work on a 24/7, right? So, this is a really strong lesson for me to compartmentalize and put boundaries around, this free time to rejuvenate, knowing that I'm not losing anything, or I'm not taking any time away from the work I'm supposed to be doing, because the active recovery that I'm doing will facilitate more inspiration, more creativity to flow, right? So Rick Rubin in The Creative Act sort of talks about, like, it's not about the work, it's about putting yourself in a situation where creativity becomes inevitable. Okay. And if you were to think about this rest and rejuvenation and work thing, it also comes back to our nervous system. Like, we need to be in the parasympathetic nervous system state. We've got those two main states. Sympathetic is fight, flight, and work and focus, and parasympathetic is more rest and digest and being creative. So we need to make sure that we're jumping between these two modes more often. A lot of people are in this chronic independence, hyper focus, pressure, are living more in this zone, right? So we need to build in time within our week. So as I say, at least 3 days, if not 2, if not more, that are dedicated to proper active recovery play stuff, things that make you smile, things that make you light up from inside, little adventures. And so again, something I've sort of stolen from someone else, and I will hopefully give them the credit, but it's just this concept of like a rhythm that you could maybe adopt is looking at maybe what are the top 3 things or 3 things that you really enjoy doing, right? That you could cycle through, at least, making like a play date for yourself each week. And you can cycle between these 3 things every week, maybe, right? So maybe it's getting out in nature, like being with your friends is a hugely healing thing. Like the power of our connections is the greatest indicator to our success and our fulfillment and our joy, right? So making time to be with friends, and so being out in nature, going with friends, and then exercise or something like that, right? So just kind of like picking, say, at least 3 things that light you up. So it might be paddleboarding, it might be swimming, it might be something, right? Just picking 3 activities that makes you feel good, and at the very least, at the bare minimum, like planning one of those things each week, right? So planning a play date with a friend, planning a trip out into nature, planning a sup adventure or something like that, right? And then just cycling through that every 3 weeks. So, every month you're seeing a friend at least twice, right? And that's kind of the bare minimum, okay? But just kind of making sure that you have this protected time for you to do those things and to plan them into your diary, because that's also going to give you something to look forward to. So yes, you've got to do all this work, but you also have this thing that you're looking forward to, which is going to feed into your work. It's not like, oh, I can't take time out to do that because I need to do all this. Like, no. That's the big reframe that we really need to get our head around, is that, procrastination takes away from this for sure. Procrastination is a waste of your time. But if you think about this play as being more like an active distraction, it actually starts to free up your mind more, and you're able to think more in direct, like sometimes illogical ways. So this distraction, this unplugging, is a function of the work. That's the reframe I really want you to remember. If you remember nothing else from today, it's about understanding that play is a function of the work that you need to do, whatever that work is for you, right? So having that protected time at least once every week where you do something that's just for you. And, if you have a family, maybe you can involve them, but just making sure that you're doing something that literally charges you up, that plugs you back in, right? And then, every quarter, having some kind of like micro adventure. So something that is at least an hour's drive away, where you can like pattern interrupt, and you maybe go and visit a friend that you haven't seen for a long time, or you just like, there's some really cool books out that are, the 100 best activities or places to visit in the UK, like just make an adventure, right? So, if you were to do that, then you'd have like 4 little mini adventures every year. And then if you were to pick like one major goal to focus on, of like one year defining thing that you want to do each year. So it might be like climbing a really like massive peak in the Lake District or Scotland or something like that. Or it might be, walking the Camino in Spain, or it might be, launching something in your business, like launching a podcast, or, whatever it might be, right? Just having, say, that one thing that you can work towards and have that as your year defining thing. So if you did that, you would be seeing friends at least twice a month. You'd be getting out on these sort of protected time, rejuvenated time. You'd be having 4 micro adventures a year. And you'd have something that, if you look back at 2024, you're like, well, that was the year that I did ... right? So I can remember that like 2018, that's the year I became sober, or 2017 was the year I did Everest Base Camp, right? So there are all these things that you can do that as you look back on your life, but it's things to look forward to and it's things to reflect on. And as you're doing it, you're changing your physiology, right? So that's kind of all I really wanted to say about making sure that your play ethic is as strong as your work ethic. And of course, what I didn't talk about in all of that was sort of like this, the planning and the preparation stage, like the practice part, but if you were to look at your week and have, maybe, like I said, if you have a full-time working job, then that might be 5 days a week, making sure that you've got that play time, you can build that active rest and active recovery even into your day, right? So you don't have to just necessarily dedicate a whole weekend to it, but you can have active recovery that happens during your work day, like build it in so that, your 24-hour period has that honoring of the work, play and planning sort of rhythm, right? The focus, the play, the planning, have those three things. What did I do with my hand then? I kind of did like a Vulcan thing. What an odd choice. Why did I not just do 3? What the hell is that about? Why did I do Vulcan to do 1, 2, 3? I've literally never done that before in my life. What is that about? Anyway, so yeah, you have the 3 things. So the focus time, the play and rejuvenation time, and you have your sort of buffer, like the planning, the preparation time, right? So working that into your daily schedule, but then also looking at your week and saying, okay, maybe how can I dedicate like at least 3 or 4 days if you work for yourself, making sure that that play and that active rest and recovery is as much a part of your work. I know I keep saying it and it might sound repetitive, but I want you to remember it. And then the focus part, and just as you start to really, create that rhythm, notice how things open up for you, notice how much more progress you feel like you take. And this is all before getting into the bigger conversation that I really want to get into eventually, which is around this, like I said, this hyper independence, almost this chronic independence that a lot of incredible women, myself included, are experiencing, like to the point where I have to do it all alone, and it's just like asking for help feels like a weakness, or I don't want to put that person out, right? And all that can kind of like come on top of us. So another part of the emotional intelligence is recognizing that a lot of this activity, this way of being, is because we have such a deep rooted attachment to an identity of like, I have to do this alone, right? So we could do all of these things, right? But actually, if we haven't fully addressed those deeper underlying beliefs that lie behind the end result, because the anxiety, the overwhelm, that is the result, that's the effect. But it's the beliefs that are driving us, right? So this belief that I have to do it myself, that I can't take my foot off the gas, that, I mean, speaking from experience, maybe there's beliefs in that, just like, oh, well, there's shame in failing, right? That is sort of meaning that we just have to be like on our computers all the time, because if I'm not working, then I'm not producing, so there is a bit of deconditioning that needs to happen there to allow us to feel safe in the expansion. Focus is contraction, and play and rejuvenation is the expansion. It feels fun, and life is meant to feel good. And we can work ourselves into a situation where we feel guilty for taking time off, and we aren't allowing ourselves to receive all the joys and all the beautifulness that life has to offer. So that is all I had to say about making sure that you are working on your play ethic. And I'd love for you to share in the comments below, like what stood out for you in this talk. If there's another talk that you would like me to riff around, I'd love for you to ask me questions. I love responding to questions. So if you were to drop them in the comments, I might do another talk around it. But yeah, I'd love for this to be a conversation. Tell me down below what new things you're seeing for yourself, what beliefs or attitudes that you may have shifted in listening to this. And yeah, I'm just, as I said, I'm working on developing my own rhythm around working, resting, and preparing. I'm also linking that in with like a woman's infradian rhythm, infradian rhythm, because men have circadian rhythms that reset every 24 hours, but women don't. You know, we have a beautiful cocktail of hormones that help us to do various things at different times of our month. So there are periods for focused work, and then there are periods for active rest. So I'm going to be putting those together into a program very, very soon, like a beta program. So stay tuned for that. Really just with this intention of empowering women to, you know, reclaim their time and to make effortless progress, and, you know, to really awaken and activate and transform our lives into a joy-filled life. And that is my wish and my prayer for you. So I'm just sending you so many blessings for today. I hope you have a wonderful time, a wonderful day. I hope you build in your play today or this week. Let me know what you're going to be doing to activate and recharge and rejuvenate yourself. And I will catch you on the next one. All right. Ta-ta for now. Namaste.